Mysterious horizon. The horizon was a line that separated the known from the unknown, the tangible from the intangible. For centuries, sailors, wanderers, and dreamers had gazed at it, wondering what lay beyond. But in the small, forgotten town of Blackwater Cove, the horizon was not a place of hope or adventure. It was a place of fear. Blackwater Cove was nestled on the edge of a jagged coastline, where the sea was as dark as ink and the waves whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. The townsfolk lived simple lives, fishing and trading, but they all shared one unspoken rule: never sail beyond the horizon. It wasn't a superstition or a legend passed down through generations. It was a warning, etched into the very fabric of their existence. The warnings began long ago, when the first settlers arrived at Blackwater Cove. They spoke of strange shadows that danced on the horizon, even on the clearest of days. These shadows were not clouds or tricks of the light. They moved with purpose, shifting and writhing like living things. Those who ventured too far into the open sea often returned with wild eyes and trembling hands, speaking of voices that called to them from the depths. Others never returned at all. For years, the people of Blackwater Cove lived in an easy harmony with the horizon. They fished close to shore, never straying too far from the safety of the land. But everything changed when a stranger arrived in town. His name was Elias Grey, a sailor with a weathered face and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 storms. He came to Blackwater Cove on a battered ship, its sails torn and its hull scarred by countless battles with the sea. The townsfolk watched him with suspicion as he docked his ship and stepped onto the creaking wooden pier. Elias was not like the other sailors who occasionally passed through Blackwater Cove. He was not interested in trading or restocking supplies. Instead, he asked questions about the horizon, about the shadows, about the stories that the townsfolk refused to speak of. Most people avoided him, muttering about his foolishness and his inevitable doom. But one person was drawn to him, a young woman named Maren. Maren had lived in Blackwater Cove her entire life. She had grown up hearing the warnings about the horizon, but unlike the others, she was not content to live in fear. She had always been curious, always yearning to know what lay beyond the line where the sea met the sky. When Elias arrived, she saw in him a kindred spirit, a man who shared her hunger for answers. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows began to stir, Maren approached Elias at the tavern. He was sitting alone at a corner table, a map spread out before him and a glass of rum in his hand. "You're not from around here," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Elias looked up, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. "And you are, Maren," she said. "I've seen you asking questions about the horizon. I want to know what you've found." Elias leaned back in his chair, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You're braver than the others," he said. "Or maybe just more foolish, maybe both," Maren admitted. "But I need to know, what's out there?" Elias hesitated, his gaze drifting to the window. Outside, the sea was calm, but the shadows on the horizon were beginning to take shape. They twisted and coiled like smoke, their edges shimmering with an otherworldly light. "I've seen things," Elias said finally, "things that defy explanation. Ships that vanish without a trace, voices that call to you, promising everything you've ever wanted. And the shadows, they're alive. They're waiting for what?" Maren asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias met her gaze, his expression grim. "For us." Despite the warnings, Maren and Elias decided to venture beyond the horizon. They prepared the ship under the cover of darkness, loading it with supplies and tools for the journey. Maren's heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement as they set sail, leaving the safety of Blackwater Cove behind. As the days passed, the sea grew darker and the air grew colder. The shadows on the horizon loomed closer, their shapes becoming more distinct. They were not clouds or waves, but something else entirely, figures that moved with an unnatural grace, their forms shifting and changing like smoke caught in a breeze. On the third night, the voices began. At first, they were faint whispers, barely audible over the sound of the waves. But as the ship drew closer to the horizon, the voices grew louder, more insistent. They spoke in a language that Maren did not understand, but their tone was seductive, promising knowledge, power, and freedom. Elias warned her not to listen, but it was difficult to resist. The voices seemed to know her deepest desires, her most secret fears. They called to her, beckoning her to step closer to the edge of the ship, to look into the depths of the sea. On the fifth day, they reached the horizon. It was not what Maren had expected. The line that had always seemed so distant was now a swirling vortex of shadows and light, a gateway to another world. The figures that had danced on the horizon were now all around them, their forms towering and immense. They had no faces, no eyes, but Maren could feel their gaze upon her, piercing and unrelenting. Elias tried to turn the ship around, but it was too late. The sea had become a living thing, its waves rising and falling with a will of their own. The shadows reached out, their tendrils wrapping around the ship, pulling it closer to the vortex. Maren felt a strange calm wash over her as the ship was drawn into the heart of the horizon. The voices were no longer whispers. They were a symphony, a chorus of sound that filled her mind and soul. She saw visions of other worlds, other lives, other possibilities. She saw herself standing on the deck of a ship made of light, sailing through a sea of stars, and then everything went dark. When Maren awoke, she was alone. The ship was gone, and she was standing on the shore of Blackwater Cove. The town was silent, the streets empty. The sea was calm, and the horizon was as it had always been, a distant line where the sky met the water. But Maren knew that she had changed. She could still hear the voices, faint and distant, calling to her from the depths. She could still see the shadows, lurking at the edge of her vision. And she knew that the horizon was not a boundary, but a doorway to something far greater and far more terrifying than she had ever imagined. From that day on, Maren became the new warning for the people of Blackwater Cove. She told them of the shadows, of the voices, of the things that waited beyond the horizon. But no one believed her. They thought she was mad, a victim of the sea's cruelty. And so, the horizon remained, a line that separated the known from the unknown, the tangible from the intangible. And the shadows waited, as they always had, for the next soul brave or foolish enough to seek them out.